Haribo.
I know it's supposed to be, I'll put it back during class, okay? Yeah, sorry, I'll put it back during class, just when I'm singing,
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari Yasodhanandana Vrajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravnachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari Yasodhanandana Vrajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravnachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari Yasodhanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravnachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Mr. Paparamahamsa Pravajakacharya Stotara Satashishi Maharaj His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Kodi Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Srimad Bhagavatam Ganzaraj Ki Oh glory is the assembled devotees, oh glory is the assembled devotees, oh glory is the assembled devotees. Oh, glory to Shishi Guru and Gauranga. Oh, Premananda. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, I've been asked to fill in for Vishnu John Prabhu, who's not quite up to the health of coming here and giving class at the moment. So I'll endeavour to say a few words on the Srimad Bhagavatam here, and ask for the blessings of all the assembled Vaishnavas here, that I may say something that's worthy. So we are reading from text 22 today, answers by citing the Lord's version of Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, which is entitled Cosmic Manifestation. Manisitanu bhavoyam Mama lokavalokanam Yadupashrutya rahasi Chakata paramam tapa Manisitanu bhavoyam Mama lokavalokanam Yadupashrutya rahasi Chakata paramam tapa Manisitanu bhavoyam Mama lokavalokanam Vyadupashrutya rahasi Chakata paramam tapa Manisita, ingenuity, Anubhava, perception, Ayam, this, Mama, my, Loka, abode, Avalokanam, see by actual experience, Yat, because, Upashrutya, hearing, Arahasi, in great penance, Chakarta, having performed, Paramam, highest, Tapa, penance. Translation, the highest perfectional ingenuity is the personal perception of my abodes, and this has been possible because of your submissive attitude in the performance of severe penances according to my order. Purport. The highest perfectional stage of life is to know the Lord by actual perception, by the grace of the Lord. This can be attained by everyone who is willing to discharge the act of devotional service to the Lord, as enjoined in the revealed scriptures that are standard and accepted by the bona fide acharyas, spiritual masters. For example, the Bhagavad-Gita is the approved Vedic literature accepted by all the great acharyas such as Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhva, Chaitanya, Vishwanath, Baladev, Siddhanta Saraswati and many others. In that Bhagavad-Gita, the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna asks that one may always be mindful of him, always be his devotee, always worship him only, and always bow down before the Lord. And by doing so, one is sure to go back home to Godhead, without any doubt. In other places, also the same order is there, that one give up all other engagements and fully surrender to the Lord without hesitation. And the Lord will give such a devotee all protection. These are the secrets of attaining the highest perfectional stage. Lord Brahma exactly followed these principles without any superiority complex. And thus he attained the highest perfectional stage of experiencing the abode of the Lord and the Lord himself with all his paraphernalia. Impersonal realization of the effulgence of the Lord's body is not the highest perfectional stage, nor is the stage of Paramatma realization. Word Manisita is significant. Everyone is falsely or factually proud of his social learning, or so-called learning. But the Lord says that the highest perfectional stage of learning is to know him and his abode devoid of all illusion. I'll read the translation again because it's so well put together by Srila Prabhupada. It's actually beautiful, poetically ingenious. The highest perfectional ingenuity is the personal perception of my abodes. And this has been possible because of your submissive attitude in the performance of severe penance according to my order. So there's a lot of P's, isn't that beautiful? Amagina Timirandasya Jananjana Salakaya Chaksuruniratam Yena Tasre Shri Gurve Namaha Dugameri Padimindasya Skale Petegadimu Swakripa Yustadanana Shatashanto Lambanam. This is a very, very wonderful sloka. It's just such a privilege to be talking about it because in the purport here we're talking about the essence of Vedic literatures, which is the Bhagavad-Gita. So Srila Prabhupada gives a history here of the Bhagavad-Gita. And what's really interesting sometimes is when we talk about history, history can be really two-dimensional. Like, for instance, I'll give you a little nugget here. When I was in I don't know what you call it, I was 12 years old, year 8, whatever you call it now, Form 2, it used to be in the old days, we used to have history. And what I learned was that the Battle of Hastings was fought in 1064. There you go, one line. And I still remember it to this day because it got drummed into me and it was on the exam. Battle of Hastings. Who fought in the Battle of Hastings? I think it was the Saxons and the Normans. Who was the good guys? I'm not quite sure. I don't even know who won, right? But it's just like that's history for you, that's two-dimensional. So actually I'm just taking off from where Mukunda Maharaj left off yesterday. I don't know if you were here for class yesterday, but the last thing he said was that the more you study Srimad Bhagavatam, the more becomes revealed to you. That actually the dimension opens up. It's just like the pages come to life. So we have that with the Bhagavad-Gita. So we study the Bhagavad-Gita, and the more we study, the more it comes to life. Just like, for instance, for example, the first chapter. Sometimes people say, yeah, skip the first chapter, start with the second, it's too complicated. And it is complicated, all these names and all these armies and what's going on. But later on, if you look at the Mahabharata and all the great acharyas like Srila Prabhupada, he always spoke about the Mahabharata. And then you hear these names like Bhisma and Karna and Drona. And when you hear these names, your hair stand on end because you know the potency of these Kshatriyas. So all of a sudden, the first chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita comes to life. So history is also like that. If you actually delve into history, you'll find that there is dimension to it. So Srila Prabhupada here is describing how the Bhagavad-Gita was passed down in a disciplic chain. Not so much how it's passed down in a chain of great, what does he say? Great acharyas, not a disciplic chain, but great acharyas. Now, there's two names here that are not in the disciplic chain. Can anyone remember it from the purport? The two names? One name? Shankara. So you read it, you go, hey, Shankara wasn't in our disciplic succession. The other one? Ramanuja, thank you very much. And he wasn't there, he was in the Sri Sampradaya. But it says, Prabhupada says here, for example, the Bhagavad-Gita is the proved Vedic literature accepted by all the great acharyas, such as Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhva Chaitanya, Vishwanath, Baladev, Siddhanta Saraswati, and many others. So I'm following the train of thought here of Srila Prabhupada, and I'm coming to the conclusion that he wants to talk about the history of the Bhagavad-Gita. And it is very interesting, as we know, it was spoken at the end of Dwapar Yuga by Krishna to Balaram. And in Dwapar Yuga, what was the prescribed method of attaining self-realization according to the Vedas? In Dwapar Yuga. Yeah. No, it's sacrifices. Because actually Yudhisthira performed, hello, I'm going all belly up here. Yagya, yeah, because Yudhisthira performed the Rajasuya Yagya, and then straight after the demise of the Pandavas and the descendant Jamajaya, he performed this great big Yagya to get rid of all the serpents in the world, and then there was 1,000-year Yagya. So the point I'm making is that the Yagyas continued on after Dwapar Yuga into Kali Yuga. There was like an overlapping, right? So that was going on and on, 1000 AD, 2000 AD, and the sacrifices were going on, and of course, as we know, India was the centre of the world. So all these Vedic rituals being performed, but actually what was happening, animal sacrifices were being incorporated more and more into this whole process of sacrifice. And why? It's because actually people were becoming lusty, they wanted to eat meat, so they used this as a pretext to actually kill animals. So hey, the Vedas say it's okay, we can do this, we can have this performance, we can kill so many animals as we like, we can eat them, and it's okay. Right? So that was the direction that, so it was going away from the essence of the Vedic literature, which is to understand the nature of the Supreme Lord and His creation. So it's a bit like Srila Prabhupada also used to say that the Christian philosophy also condones meat eating, but it doesn't really, because in one of the commandments it says that thou shalt not kill. And Srila Prabhupada used to remind people of that all the time. I mean, there was this really interesting interview with a French cardinal, so they're having, and Prabhupada just went straight for the jugular. It's like it says in the Bible, thou shalt not kill. Why are you killing? Why are you eating meat? Yeah, well, it's sort of like there's a soul in the human beings, and the animals, they have... and he's going, no, but actually Jesus says that you wouldn't let him off the hook. Very, very strong. So the fact is that this was going on, it was getting worse. So we're going into 3000 BC. This is a history lesson, okay? 3000 BC, 4000 BC. So what was the scheduled order of incarnations? It was Lord Buddha. So Lord Buddha come along, and his specific function, as is enjoined in the Govinda Stotra, that he took the people away from this animal sacrifices. Hey, don't do this, don't do this. Very bad karma if you do this. You have to be implicated in this world. Better that you don't eat meat, you practice ahimsa, non-violence. Don't kill anything, and then you'll be karma-free, and then you get liberation, right? And what's that called? It's called nirvana in Buddhism, that you'll be so happy that you're free from all your karma, that you're liberated from the material world, and you'll feel nothingness. And that's just such an ecstatic feeling compared to all the pain that you're suffering in this material world. And to do that, don't read the Vedas. Get away from the Vedas. It's sort of like you don't understand them. It's all belly up. So people actually went away from the Vedas and practiced Buddhism from 600 BC. And this was going away. So it was good that meat eating had stopped, but the fact was that they weren't understanding what was the Supreme Lord within the heart and what the purpose of the creation was, is to actually go back to Godhead. So in this way it was there, and then Lord Krishna, he asked Lord Shiva, he said, this is going on, it's sort of got to stop now. Can you come down and re-establish the fact that, you know, the Vedas are the supreme, because the Vedas are always there. The Vedas are the instructions, they're the manual, how to survive in this material world. So they were all being ignored. Maybe the outer Vedas, like the, you know, the, what do you call it, the medicine, what's the one Veda for the medicine? Ayurveda, maybe some other subsidiary Vedas there, but the essence of the Vedas, like the Upanishads and the Puranas, they were totally discarded. So therefore, Lord Shiva, in his incarnation as Sankaracharya, said even though unwillingly, he had to perform this task of reviving Vedic philosophy, and he once again began to reinstate Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Samkhya Yoga, but with this, there was one thing that happened with Buddha, is that before there was the ritual yajnas going on, there was the chanting of mantras for sacrifice, but now Lord Buddha, he inaugurated ahimsa, but the chanting came in, the chanting of the process of chanting to attain liberation started to come in with Buddhism. So we have so many different Buddhist chants that they were going on. So Sankaracharya, when he reintroduced the Vedas, he continued the process of chanting, so it was an inauguration of the process of kirtan in this age of Kali, coming through Sankaracharya, even though the goal was different. His goal was that actually, it was the same as Buddhism, that we are going to reach that state of Brahman, which is also one with everything, that impersonal stage that we are one. So it's called Mayavadi Philosophy. So the positive effect he had was that he continued the stopping of animal sacrifices, encouraged the chanting of mantras, and people began to chant the Rig, Sama, Yajur, Veda, and the Mayavadi philosophy started to predominate, and he introduced the Bhagavad-Gita once again, 600 AD, so people started to read the Bhagavad-Gita. Even though the conclusion was different, still Bhagavad-Gita was there, present. People were studying Bhagavad-Gita. And so he revived, just like Srila Prabhupada said, he revived the validity of the Bhagavad-Gita. But it was very interesting. He didn't stay on the planet for very long. You'd think, well, why would he, to spread impersonal as Lord Shiva, Shambhu, the greatest Vaishnava. And right at his death, he said, he chanted one sloka. Does anybody remember what the sloka was? Bhaja Govinda, Mudamate. That all you fools and rascals, you should be chanting the Lord's name, Govinda. And he said Govinda, the Krishna, the Lord of the cows, the worshipful cows, and the devotees. So he was specifically speaking about Krishna. So that was his parting, what do you call it, profound piece of wisdom. So then after Shankaracharya, the Mayavadi philosophy started to come in, the Vedas were being read, and then the next one to come along that Srila Prabhupada was talking about was Ramanujacharya. So we just spoke about Ramanujacharya a couple of, last week actually, it was his disappearance day. And he was very strong on renouncing the Mayavadi philosophy and re-establishing the fact that Krishna exists as a super soul within the heart. Sometimes this philosophy is called the Chincha Beta Beta Tattva, that the Lord is simultaneously one and different at the same time. The Lord is one, and we are parcels of the Lord, but we are different, that we are tiny, minute parcels of the Lord. And he spoke very strongly on the existence of God, Narayan, and in Vaikuntha, and he reaffirmed his sampradaya, which is not really in our sampradaya. We come from the Brahma sampradaya, but he actually reaffirmed the Vishnu sampradaya, which is very prominent in South India, which is the worship of Narayan in Vaikuntha. So he was a very, very prominent figure, and of course he spoke from the Bhagavad-Gita very strongly. So after that, Srila Prabhupada mentions Madhvacharya, who came. Ramanuja was in the 9th century. Okay, Shankara was in the 6th century, so he had to go at it for like 300 years. And Ramanuja started to spread Vaishnava philosophy. And then Madhvacharya come along in the year 10,000, nearly 1100, 1017, 1017, about 1,000 years ago. So then Madhvacharya is in a disciplic succession, and he spread this Dvaita philosophy. So he always held up his finger that there's a soul and there's a super soul. And so a disciplic succession comes from him. And then Srila Prabhupada, so he's got Sankara, Ramanuja, Madhva, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we're very grateful that we are born in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who has given us the worship of Radha and Krishna, the highest worship, where most of the Vedas, almost all of the Vedas talk about Narayan and Vaikuntha, that the liberation is the 5 types of liberation, and you get to reside in the planet of Narayan. So Lord Chaitanya told us about Radha and Krishna, and from him in the disciplic succession, it's also very interesting that the next one is... Anyone? Yeah, good guess. You didn't even hear the purport, but you made an educated guess. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. The most important thing about Vishwanath was that he came... Oh, there's so many important things. He's such a great author and poet. But a couple of 100 years after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, once again Mayavadi philosophy started to creep in very much so. And there was another aspect of the Vedic cultures that the Brahmins were supreme to everybody, and that seemed to be holding sway over so many centuries that actually you couldn't achieve liberation unless you were Brahmin. So if you were a Sudra, you had to become a Vaishya, and then in the next birth you become a Kshatriya, and then you become a Brahmin, and then you're eligible to go back to Godhead. So it's like that. So a Brahmin and a Sudra, like, hey, you've got a long way to go. Don't even talk to me. Don't even cross my shadow. You know? So sometimes it was like that. So there was a sort of very, very parochial, myopic angle of vision. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur challenged that very, very vociferously. And he had a very strong disciple whose name was Baladev Vijayabhusana. So he's the next one mentioned in this purport by Srila Prabhupada here, that from him come Baladev. And there's one very, very important incident that happened that was in City of Victory, Jaipur. So in Jaipur, all the deities had been taken, the main important 3 of the 4 deities, wasn't it, that was established by Krishna's grandson, right? Rajnabha, he established these deities which were found by the Goswamis, and because that horrible Aurangzeb, that Muslim, was going to attack Vrindavan, that the deities were smuggled out of Vrindavan and taken to Jaipur. So the main deity that was being worshipped was Radha and Govinda. And that was being worshipped by the Brahmanas from South India, who were very, very paka and chanting Vedic mantras, and it was worshipped also in conjunction with the Vaishnavas. And the Brahmins took offense to the fact that Vaishnavas were worshipping the deities. They said, who are these people? They just come, some of these Sudras, they don't know the Vedic Shastras, so how can they worship the highest deity, Radha Govinda? So they submitted this before the king, right? And the king actually put this under question, and the main thing, the main argument that the Brahmanas had was that they haven't even got a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. They've got the disciplic line they're saying comes from Vaishnava tradition, but where's their commentary? Where's their substance? They have no substance. So the king, even though he's a great devotee, he's going, yeah, that's right, they don't have any substance, right? So this got back to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He was in Vrindavan. How far is Jaipur from Vrindavan? 2 hours, 3 hours. Well, in those days, it'd be like 3 weeks or something like that walking. So by that time, Vishwanath was very, very old, and he said, look, I can't do this, even though I would so much love to defend Vaishnavism. So he sent his disciple, who argued with the Brahmanas, and he defeated those Brahmanas, but they said, yeah, but still you haven't got the commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. So they gave him a month, right, to write this whole commentary. So he went back to Vrindavan, wrote this wonderful commentary on Vedanta Sutra, which astounded all the Brahmanas, and it actually established the fact that Vaishnavism was supreme. And the result of that was that all the Brahmanas got kicked out of the worship and the Vaishnavas took over. So that was a very important event. So therefore we have Vishwanath, we have Baladev, and of course after that we have Prabhupada mentions Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And of course Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, was so prominent in defeating all the Mayavadi philosophy, which every now seems to raise its head. There was another couple of 100 years gap, and as soon as there's some lack of preaching of Vaishnavism, once again impersonalism starts to creep in. So of course we chant Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Sai Bodheshwari Bhakti Namaste Saraswati Devi, that's Saraswati Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, Gauravani Prachare Nirvasesa Sunyavadi, the impersonalists and the Mayavadis. You are just vanquishing them by your potency. So therefore, that's what Srila Prabhupada, he mentioned that, so it's very, very interesting. That's with the Bhagavad-Gita. So then Srila Prabhupada establishes that the Bhagavad-Gita is the way forward on the path to spiritual realization, and he quotes, in English, he doesn't actually quote any Sanskrit in this. He's saying that by, in the Bhagavad-Gita, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna asks that one always be mindful of him, always be his devotee, always worship him only, and always bow down before the Lord. So my question to you, folk out there, you great devotees out there, what slokas is he actually talking about in the Bhagavad-Gita? I mean, he alludes that there's a couple of slokas. Sorry? Say it loud. Manmana bhavamat bhakto majyaji mam namaskuru. So what's the translation? Manmana. No. Always think of me, become my devotee. Yeah. So also I had 10.8. I think that's the one, that's 10.9, isn't it? So I had 10.8. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam prabhatateti matva bhajanti mam buddha bhava samanvita. I'm the source of all incarnations. Everything emanates from me. The wise who understand this perfectly worship me with all their hearts. So all this is coming from the Bhagavad-Gita. And Srila Prabhupada also continues on in other places, the same order is there, that one give up all other engagements and fully surrender to the Lord without hesitation. So we can all rattle off that sloka, can't we? We know what that one is. Who knows? You've had your go. You know. Anybody else? In the which chapter of Bhagavad-Gita? 18th chapter, 66. We used to sort of say this in our sleep. Sarva dharmam parityagyam mamekam saranam raja ham tvam sarva papabhyo mokshashe shyami masucha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful activities, do not fear. Abandon all types of religion. So, there's certain different types of religious principles. It's just like we had a discussion about religion. People sort of by nature are religious in their activities, even though they don't worship God. It's some sort of religion that they start. So it's not only that you abandon all other different religions, like you think of the big religions, you abandon a lot of your bad habits that you formed around yourself and just concentrate, focus on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, continuing on, Srila Prabhupada hasn't mentioned this, but in the modern age, Srila Prabhupada is descended to enlighten us all about the Bhagavad-Gita. I mean, where would we be without Srila Prabhupada? It's like we say, Om Gyanat, Grandasya, Jananjara, Salakya, Chaksur, Unmilitam, that Srila Prabhupada has opened our eyes, torchlights of knowledge. So he's removed the cataracts, that's what it says in the Bhagavad-Gita. Who's had cataracts before? Who's had them removed? I tell you, it's such a difference. You know, like when you get cataracts, actually this film comes in front of you and it's just sort of like slow, like some fog, it comes and you just see these dull images. You can't actually do anything. I've seen people get a magnifying glass and try to sort of read the Srimad Bhagavatam, Madhavisa, like that. You can't do anything, and then all of a sudden the cataract's gone from your eyes and you see clarity again. And not only that, with modern science they adjust your focus, so you don't even need glasses. How's that? That's just a throwaway. So remove the cataracts. It's really unbelievable. So what Prabhupada has done, he's delivered us Krishna, and it's also shaking up the remnants of the Mayavadi philosophy. So once again, as soon as Vaishnavism decreases, the Mayavadi personal philosophy starts to creep in again. Just like a religion is under attack, it's been blamed for everything, it's the scapegoat for everything. And they think, oh, Buddhism is really good, ahimsa, non-violence. Very, very watered down sort of philosophy. We can practice Buddhism, that sounds great. So many people give that lip service, oh yeah, I'm a Buddhist. I don't practice anything. So they probably don't even practice non-violence. A lot of Buddhists still eat meat. So in the absence of religion, once again, this Mayavadi creeps in. And so Srila Prabhupada is very strong in that. He came and he preached to the hippies, he made hippies into happies, and that was permeated with this Mayavadi philosophy. I don't know, there were so many catch cries in the 60s that I am you and you are me and we're all together, I am one. Like that, we're all one, isn't it? There's so many, it just goes on, we're all one. I remember one famous sort of like, I suppose, hippie friend. I was a devotee, I was just a bhakta, but he'd come in to Melbourne Temple. Haribol, this fellow, maybe you might, no, get him to do it, he's sort of having a hard time keeping his energy levels. So this one hippie came in, a little friend of mine, and he brought his father in, and he goes into the temple and says, oh man, pay obeisances to your higher self. I came in front of Krishna. I thought what are you thinking? You're thinking that actually Krishna is your higher selves. So this is how it is being presented in the sloka, in the purport yesterday. Prabhupada mentioned these two key words which just caught my imagination. He's talking about the pseudo-mystics, right? What a way to put two words together, the pseudo-mystics. So here we have it. So this is sort of like a spin-off once again of the Mayavadi philosophy, that we have our higher self, we're on the path to enlightenment. So to get that, we have the demigods, like we have all the different demigods. We have Shiva and we have Vishnu. They're all the same. They're all manifestation of illusion, because everything is illusion, Maya. Everything's illusion. The only real thing is Brahman. Of course, we know that Brahman is only the first step in God realization, but that's what they go for, Brahman. And they can't go any higher because they don't know the second step or third step. So once they're vibrating in the Brahman, there's no chance of getting to Vaikuntha, because they don't believe in it. If it doesn't exist, okay, Krishna said, well, you don't have to come here, just vibrate in the Brahman, which they can't do because they're the individual souls and they want to reciprocate with something, so they just sort of vibrate, and when you vibrate, sometimes you become unsteady and you unravel and you come back in the material world. So anyway, so they use this, all the demigods as a step to God. So first of all, we become our higher self, we become a demigod, and this is where the offences happen, that Lord Vishnu is like one of the gods. He's like Brahma, Shiva, Vishnu, triangle is one of the demigods, and then Krishna is the 8th incarnation of Vishnu, so he's in there too. So they classify Krishna as one of the demigods, and then they use that to sort of try to elevate themselves on the platform demigod. From there they can go to the Brahman realization. So that is there, the pseudo-mystics are speaking like that in so many different ways. And then we have, we experience this here in the village, that people will chant with us, they'll enthusiastically chant Hare Krishna, but then they'll go somewhere else and they'll chant Om Shivaya Namaha. We're very happy to chant that and all the other different, Shivaratri is coming, you watch all the Shiva performances that will be going on. But actually we understand that all this chanting is very nice, of all the names, but why do it? Because there's a very, very nice sloka from the Upanishads. So it's our, from the Upanishads are really ensconced in the Vedas, that Om Purnam Ada Purnamidam Purnam Dachyate Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. That the Lord explains that He is the full potency of everything that emanates, the spiritual and the material, and even that which is material is still the full potency of the Lord. Even the jivas, we are the full potency of Krishna, just in small parts. We still have that spiritual potency of Krishna. So the original source is traced back to Krishna. So what is the point of worshipping the demigods when they're incomplete, they're jivas? And even Lord Shiva himself, he's a great Vaishnava, but the fact is, the comparison is to milk and curd. So if you've got milk and you curdle it with lemon juice, you get curd, right? That's famous, even famous nursery rhymes. Everybody knows that, milk to curd. So when you've got curd, you can't do anything with it. Maybe just deep fry it, put it in sabji or something like that. But you can't actually revert it back to anything else. But when you have milk, you can go so many different ways. You can go cream, yogurt, butter, ghee, so many wonderful varieties. So this is Vishnu and Shiva. So Shiva's like curd. So therefore he's only got so many of the qualities that are there in Vishnu. He only has a percentage, 84% of the qualities, I think, of Lord Vishnu. Krishna, he said he's got 64 qualities. And so therefore Shiva is incomplete. So why bother doing something that's incomplete? Why don't we do something that's full? I'll just finish with one other sort of, there's a discussion going on, a little bit of a discussion yesterday about Narayan. So I was given a Sunday feast lecture once here, and some gentleman really insisted that, why are you talking about Krishna? Narayan is God, it's Narayan. Everybody knows Narayan is the Supreme Lord. So that is a fact, that Narayan is the Supreme Lord, but actually beyond Narayan is Krishna. Why are you saying that? I say because Krishna's got 4 extra qualities that Krishna's got, qualities that Narayan hasn't got. He's got that quality of beauty, that he's more beautiful than Narayan. He's actually, he plays the flute so well that he attracts not only human beings but all the living entities. He makes rivers turn backwards. He can make stones come alive, and so he can stun birds fall out of the trees by hearing his flute playing. Narayan can't do that. And he has wonderful pastimes, like we have Govardhan Hill, that's his 3rd quality. And his fourth quality is that he attracts so many devotees. So this attraction of the devotees is not only the awe and reverence that Narayan brings, but it actually goes beyond that, that friendship, that feeling of parenthood and the feeling of conjugal love. And he's surrounded by millions and millions of devotees who are experiencing this ecstasy. So this is the difference between Krishna and Narayan. And if you really want to know conclusive proof that Narayan's consort, Lakshmi, she's all desiring to be with Krishna. She actually came to Vrindavan and asked if she could associate Krishna in his pastimes as a gopi. When Krishna was a little boy and Krishna said, no, sorry. She goes, but I've performed all these austerities. I want to actually reciprocate you on a higher level. He said, no, sorry, you can't do that. You have to go back to your own incarnation and serve Lord Narayan. You're the goddess of fortune. So she was very, very disappointed. And the great acharyas say that the understanding is that Lakshmi, she's the goddess of fortune. She's used to all these opulences, all these palaces and servants. How could she become a gopi and go down into the village and go get the cow patties and have cow dung all over her hands, put them together and put them on the wall like that? She'd be horrified, getting all dirty. So there was this sort of tinge that she was still attracted to the opulence, but the gopis had just given up everything and were just completely absorbed in talk about Krishna. Even while they're doing the patties, whatever the gopis are doing, they're always talking about Krishna. It doesn't really matter whether Krishna's there or Krishna's not there. They're always on that highest level of ecstasy. So that is the difference between Krishna and Narayan and everybody else. So it's wonderful purport by Srila Prabhupada. It's time to finish now. Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments that someone might like to give?
You mentioned about Lord Shiva and that he is in a different category on his own. He's not Vishnu Tattva or Jiva Tattva. I was just listening to CC and he was saying that there's so many Shivas and it's inconceivable. So I'm just trying to get my head around that. And also he's known as the Param Vaishnava. So how do we understand that? Because we don't want to get sidetracked, but at the same time understanding how do we...
Well, only Vaishnavas can understand that Lord Shiva is the greatest Vaishnav because they read Srimad Bhagavatam and they understand that Lord Shiva is actually a protector of the holy Dham of Vrindavan. So we see Lord Shiva in that light. So other people who don't understand that worship Lord Shiva on another different level. Some worship him for material benedictions, just like Lord Shiva is very easily pleased, like even the demons. So many demons worship Lord Shiva, and when Shiva came, they asked for ridiculous benedictions. Lord Shiva said, okay, right? So normally other people see that Lord Shiva is very, very tolerant, and so they'll worship him. So there's a sort of reciprocation, material reciprocation with Lord Shiva, but actually, even though that appears to be, but the Lord Shiva has taken on the function of being in charge of the mode of ignorance. So he awards what these living entities want. But his own deep meditation is that he's meditating on the lotus feet of Krishna. That was exemplified, actually. I just finished listening to a discussion about Lord Shiva and Daksha. That Daksha was the Prajapati, was one of the big sort of sages in the universe in the beginning, and his function was to populate the universe. And he was very good at it, and he had lots of opulence. So there was big fire, one of the big yajnas going on, ceremony, and everybody was sitting there, and he walks in, like Daksha, so proud of his body and his looks and his luster, that he was a very lustrous person, and everybody stood up except Lord Shiva. And why did Lord Shiva? Because he was just totally absorbed in the pastimes of Krishna. He didn't even notice Daksha. He was beyond Daksha. Daksha was only a living entity. It's like you said that Lord Shiva is between. He's an incarnation. He's like Vishnu, but curds the milk. And so Daksha got offended by his appearance. Look at this person. Just look at him. He's got ashes all over his body. He's got all these ghostly hobgoblins. That's his disciples. You tell the quality of a person by his disciples, and look at his disciple. And he just goes on and on and on. He really offended Lord Vishnu. And it started a real bun fight between the followers of Lord Vishnu and followers of Daksha, and that was Bhrigu Muni. He had big followers, Bhrigu and other great sages, and that cursing and counter-cursing, it all went on. So Lord Shiva just calmly walked away. He wasn't undisturbed, right? He just walked away from it. So he's totally absorbed in focusing on the Lord Lord Krishna. And sometimes when devotees sometimes he helps devotees or people who are potentially devotees, instead of granting their desires, he'll steer them to Lord Krishna. There's instances of that, and a lot of devotees allude to that in their personal pastimes, that sometimes they may have been under the impression that Lord Shiva was the Supreme Personality of Godhead or something, and Lord Shiva sort of arranged for a swift kick where they sort of get ushered into, come across the association of devotees and get straightened out. Jai, any other? Well, good. Yeah, well.
Just quick on that. Just that point you made on Narayan and Krishna, just a comment. So, as famous as Lord Prabhupada said, that Krishna's God at home and Lord Narayan is God in the office. So same personality.
Thank you very much. Jai, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jai, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Insignificant spark of a spark.